Hello, everyone, and welcome to my forecast for the full moon in Aquarius happening August 11th. Now, there's been a lot of hype around this full moon. I've been talking about it on TikTok, on my podcast, and for a good reason. This is a pretty serious climactic energy of finality and endings. So, for everybody, there is a finishing off of a commitment or kind of reaching a dead end in a certain area of life and making adjustments. So, I'm going to do a deep dive of that and actually explain how it affects every rising sign. So keep watching. And before I do that, though, if you'd like a reading from me, a full reading one-on-one or a mini reading, those are both open. My mini readings are a great way to get a 15-minute deep dive into your chart. I talk really fast, really succinctly, efficiently. I get into everything that's important. And then after that, if you want a full session, it can almost be a good preview for you of how I read. And if you want a full session to discuss it further, of course, you can schedule that as well on my website. And also, I'm launching my very first astrology course. This is the Introductory course, Mastering the Fundamentals of Astrology. That's also in the link down below. The classes begin August 20th. It's 5 classes. If you can't attend one of them or any of them live, you still get access to the recordings. These recordings will not be distributed to anyone else but the students who enroll. So I'd highly encourage you to act now. Enrollment ends August 15th, so please check that out. Now, for this full moon, you want to look at where 19 degrees of Aquarius is in your chart. So that, and even into like the 22nd, 23rd degree, because Saturn will be at 22 degrees. And especially if you have personal planets or your sun or moon in those degree points of the fixed signs. So we're talking 19 degrees, plus or minus a few degrees there, but definitely within that sort of range of like the mid-teens to the mid-20s. You will definitely feel this moon, especially. But I don't want to overemphasize that because when a full moon is conjunct to Saturn, there is a sort of a predominance globally for everybody, everyone on the planet. So when we think about this full moon, it really is, because it's happening in Aquarius, we want to dissect that sign first. And so Aquarius, right, is the fringe in some ways. It's the unconventional. It's the collective consciousness as well. And it's this idea that there is a strength in numbers, that when we all kind of band together as a community with some type of shared mission or aspiration, that we can accomplish a lot. Because it is conjunct to Saturn, however, even though Saturn rules Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius conjunct the full moon, it kind of adds some type of feeling of entrapment or enclosure or claustrophobia or limitation, of feeling like we have blockages in these areas. Because a full, freely expressive Aquarian energy, which oftentimes is associated with Uranus, in a sort of like, unimpeded version of Aquarius, it's like these are communities gathering, organizing, planning a better future for humanity, thinking about forward progress. Whenever Saturn is involved, it's like there's a certain sensibility and a seriousness about these matters of like, well, we need to have rules around these communities, around these gatherings, around collectivism, around social activism. And so on this full moon, there's kind of, just in a broad sense, like it is almost like putting pressure on people to think about, okay, I have this dream of like what will improve society, whether that's by, solving the climate crisis or a food shortage issue or whatever. It's like we all have these aspirations, and we kind of need Saturn to help organize and put things into some type of order of like, okay, well, if you actually want to solve the world's problems, you have to have a structure to these things, maybe even a hierarchy to these things. It can't just be random group involvement. But the thing with Saturn that gift in that context is that Saturn helps us kind of delay gratification and defer to the rules, because in theory we need some amount of rules and a process in order to organize and get things done and delineate. So this Saturn conjunction in a way is helpful, and so I wouldn't be surprised if on this full moon some people are really are really manifesting some of their hopes and dreams around communities and humanitarian aspirations, things like that. But I don't want to overplay that completely, because the full moon is an illumination. The full moon is an illumination in the Aquarian region of your chart. And with Saturn there, we are releasing oftentimes a commitment. It's kind of like the 11th hour of a responsibility that we realize we don't want anymore. And I talked about this on TikTok. You're going to feel this mounting pressure on your shoulders. It's just going to feel like, okay, I've been able to lift and hold up this weight for my marriage or for my job, or for my family. I've been able to carry this weight. And on the full moon, it's just adding a little bit of extra incremental pressure and saying, do you still want to commit to this? Do you still want to commit to this relationship, to this marriage, to this community? Do you still want to commit to this, enterprise, this business? And so for many of you, this full moon is when you say yes to that. And you say yes to that partnership. Or you say yes to that career. And you say, but it has the energy of a crossroads a little bit there, right? Because there is that breaking point for many of you as well, where you say, I'm kind of done. I'm kind of finished. I liked this relationship, for example, when there wasn't a lot of friction. I enjoyed it when my partner was very free-form and whimsical and positive and happy. But now that they're sad, it's like, wow, I don't know. Maybe I was in it for convenience. So actually, that's a good operating term for this full moon. It's highly inconvenient. And so that inconvenience is reinforcing this idea that success only comes through persistent effort. Saturn is success and manifestation, but only through incremental gains. And so it's like, are you willing to stick with this job for this like extra 2 or 3% raise? Are you willing to stick with this relationship to kind of like hold off on, closeness for a while? Are you willing to sit in the trenches there and weather that storm? This is that challenge. Saturn is presenting a challenge of like, can you get organized? And again, can you commit to this situation? And when we think about Saturn, I want to keep digging into this. Saturn represents, enclosure, entrapment, definition, separation, isolation, limitation, restriction, constraint, seriousness, and decision. Now, I wanted to throw a bunch of those keywords at you to just kind of let it seep in. So Saturn pertains to this feeling as well of like a social identification, a social status, and again, a manifestation and achievement and accomplishment of things. But in accomplishing something, there's a sense of like we are kind of an individual, right? We are a fragment. We are not necessarily in the collective anymore. It's like this idea of it's lonely at the top. That's what Saturn teaches us. And so for many people, this is a commitment of like defining yourself in a certain way in that area of the chart. Again, am I a husband? Am I a wife? Am I a spouse? Am I a manager? Am I a data analyst? All of these titles and associations that you have are under the microscope here. And I would do that. I talked about this in my last video about the Mars-Uranus conjunction. Think about how you define yourself in your life. And I don't just mean with your career. I mean in all the areas I talked about. Are you a suburban person? Are you an urban person? Are you cosmopolitan? Are you more rural? Are you skeptical? Are you spiritual? Are you rational? Are you, again, a vice president? Are you an entry-level employee? Are you a musician? We all carry around a bunch of different name tags. It's like, hi, my name is Evan. I am an astrologer. I'm a musician. I'm a data analyst. I have many definitions. But, of course, we have limited time and limited life. Like, we have only so much life to live. And so Saturn is pushing us now to say, again, do you want to be this person's spouse? Does it sound right to be attached to their name in some way or to live with them? Does it feel right? Saturn is saying, well, there is this thing called mortality, and we need to reach our accomplishments in this finite amount of time. And so again, the weight on the shoulders is happening. There's blockages. We're realizing we can't go any further. We're at the 11th hour of a certain commitment in which we double down on it or we walk away for the sake of the long-term success. So at this time, it is not a problem. It is not a bad thing to walk away. Because if you realize you're at the 11th hour of a certain responsibility and you know that you have further to climb on your ascent, then maybe you have to shed that baggage. Because at that point, it's baggage. It's a blockage. It's an obstruction. So it's better to release it. And again, this depends on where the moon is for you, which I'll talk about in a minute. But sometimes it's better to sidestep, to take a break, to take a breather, to absolve yourself of the responsibility, and again, sit with yourself and reprioritize. And again, go through this exercise I discussed of identifications. Which identifications are you proud of and kind of shaky on? Because everybody has that. Some people might say, I'm very proud of my musical accomplishments. I'm kind of mixed on my lawyer related. Like, I am also a lawyer, and I'm not so sure if I really even care about the things I've done in that area. I've actually just been doing law because my parents wanted me to, or because my friends were going to law school. You have to face the cold, hard truth of why you've made certain decisions. This is what Saturn does. It reinforces consequences. So it's like your decision to go to graduate school when you were 23 affected the rest of your life. That limited your options. Your decision to move to New York City to pursue a career as a data analyst limited your other decisions. Everyone does this. Everyone makes choices over, and you start with almost an infinite palette, right? When you're a kid, it's like, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want. As you become an adult, your choices and fields of possibility start to shrink, and eventually you only have a couple options. And so Saturn is that dawning realization that something has to be committed to. Again, like there's another crossroads of like, now we're down to like 2 or 3 decisions. Are you with this person or are you not? It's kind of binary. Saturn will make things binary because it's kind of like Pluto in that way. It's like very all-encompassing. It can be very final and absolute. So you're at this 11th hour. And again, I'm not saying that everyone's losing something per se, but in a way you are, right? Because when you commit to that relationship in a positive way and you say, I'm ready to marry or I'm ready to engage, you are losing the possibility of living a life as a bachelor, for example, or as a single person. When you choose to accept this amazing job in another country, helping, to solve the climate crisis, you are giving up something else. Saturn is this zero-sum game, and it's consequential. And on top of this, well, before I say the next thing, I do want to walk through the rising sign impact. So for Aries rising, this choice and finality will be in your communities in Aquarius, in the 11th house, which is associated with Aquarius. So are there friend groups you feel like that have outworn their welcome? This is the time to walk away and start over. And again, on the positive side, this could be claiming a higher sense of responsibility in a community or an organization. So maybe taking over the money flows, maybe taking over the partnerships with vendors. Like there's all these other things that you can do there. Taurus rising, this is in your 10th house. 10th house, this is tough. Taurus risings are facing the most pressure right now, overall, because I think Saturn up in the 10th is like, it's just so dominant. And saying like, you have to, again, really choose this career. Maybe it's not a forever thing, right? But it's like, you want to be in this career for a long time, or you want to start over. So Taurus risings are feeling that right now, and that feeling will be conjured by a conversation or a dynamic with an authority figure or manager, or maybe even a parent. So it could even be like a father or mother saying, why are you talking about leaving law? Or just saying something where they don't even realize you've been thinking about it, and it's like they're not even questioning it. Like, are you going to this function next week for your law at your law firm? And you're like, I'm done. Something in it just triggers that. That could happen. Gemini risings, this focus is more on educational paths, so committing to a graduate program or school in general. finishing off a degree, or maybe even traveling, for a family matter. By the way, Cancer risings, this is tough. Cancer risings are actually kind of getting disconnected from somebody intimately and or financially. So if you have a partnership or a resource reservoir that you have through a partnership, a marriage, or a family, in some ways that could be severed, that tie, and also any intimate relationships you have with people could be compromised, where you just kind of have to sit with the cold, austere 8th house Saturn and actually take this time away from your intimate life to re-encounter and make sure that you've actually vanquished certain fears. Because ever since Saturn entered Aquarius, you've had it in your 8th house for the most part, depending on the degree of your rising sign. But Cancer risings have had to face a lot of past conditioning and how it's influenced their toxic behaviors, really since 2020, right? It's been quite painful for Cancer risings. And so you've been letting go of a lot, but this full moon is still kind of a reminder that you have a little bit left to drain, to detoxify. And if you're involved in a business, it could be finishing off some like loose ends and fine print in founding a business. So that's fine. Or offloading a business even. Leo risings, I got a lot of I don't know, maybe criticism and excitement, and maybe I don't know if Leo risings enjoyed this or not, but I called them out on TikTok as being especially in a daunting position on this full moon, and I still agree with that. You know, again, I talked about the marriage or the significant relationship or the partnership that is under the microscope as well. Are you committing to this person or not? So Leo risings, you've started to feel this pressure since 2020 of like needing to commit, and your partner feeling, if you have a partnership or if not, a significant friendship or a business partner, they've been feeling very dour and like burdensome and overly serious and asking too much of you. And like I said, it's like there's a time in the honeymoon phase when a partner, and I know you Leo risings love the honeymoon phase, there's a time when it's all roses and it's easy and everything you do is magic. And that's gone. You know, Saturn in Aquarius means that you have ended, even if you entered a relationship 6 months ago, like if you entered as a Leo rising a relationship while Saturn's in your 7th house, it's almost like there's no honeymoon phase, to be honest. It's like stuff got serious right away. And in a good way, it's like a stress test, right? It's a reality check. It's kind of like starting a business in a recession. If you start a relationship while Saturn's in the 7th, you already know if it's going to stand the test of time, probably. So whether you've just got in one or you've been in one for 5 years, I got a lot of comments from people saying, yeah, I'm about to end a 7-year, 12-year relationship. I'm not surprised, because Saturn here is that reality check, that gut check of like, is this person worth it? And you might even find that your partner right now is kind of just a buzzkill. They're just a buzzkill. They're training for a marathon, or they're studying for the GMAT, or they're just like doing something that you feel does not involve you. It cuts you off, right? It was almost like there's a love triangle between you, the partner, and their job or their aspirations or their hopes for this big grandiose achievement. And so don't let that step into your relationship fully. You have to stand up for yourself and say, hey, like, I appreciate that you want to go to business school, but I have needs too. Can we go on like a hiking trip this weekend? Can we do something to bring in some levity? Otherwise, your relationship is done. I think so. Keep that in mind. Now we have Virgo risings. It's in your 6th house, so it's a dawning realization that your responsibilities, your daily responsibilities, are getting kind of rigid and stiff, and you don't necessarily enjoy them. But it is a call to optimize that machine, the mechanics of the body. That's the 6th house. So getting your routines in order and more organized. There's definitely something that Virgo risings are doing that is throwing them off. They're not efficient enough yet. There's still room for efficiency, so try to hack that. Libra risings, there's creative projects that are coming to fruition right now or ending. Maybe you are giving up on that song or that painting, or maybe you're planning a release date right now. That full moon is good for at least planning that out, or maybe even releasing it. And I get that some people say you should release on a new moon, but like I still think that the full moon in conjunct to Saturn, it's like this illumination of an accomplishment. So I don't hate that, right? And it's a blossoming of something. So Scorpio rising, your home life is under the microscope. You're feeling the ways in which your family or your home itself is limiting you. and feeling kind of depressing. The home is feeling depressing right now, so you're just like, you want to break out of that. Maybe have a roommate, maybe bring in your partner, maybe move to a new place, maybe rearrange the home to be a little bit more fun. You're realizing that you've like stifled yourself. Don't make your home your office completely. That's the lesson there. But also there could be a little bit of confrontation with someone in the family and realizing that you want to disconnect from them. Sag risings, it's in your third house, so you're being tested. Your knowledge is being tested quite readily. So this could be you taking an exam or teaching something, or even, like a little bit of a cutoff, like a disconnection online or through a text message or an email. Like you might be like ghosting someone or vice versa at this time. That third house of communication is occupied by Saturn right now. That will, with that full moon, is maybe there's like a voice note that comes through, a text that comes through saying, hey, we're done. So it's almost like an online breakup. And I don't mean that as necessarily romantic, because the third house could be anything. It could be like a friend, a sibling, a family member, anyone. But just watch for that around August 11th. You might be having some tough conversations. And then what do we have next? We have Cap risings. Your financial situation is a little bit underwhelming right now with Saturn there. And even if you make enough money, you're just feeling you don't feel like you have enough. So you're getting your financial house in order. And again, this doesn't mean any financial loss per se, but it does mean that there's a dissatisfaction around how much you're bringing in. So this full moon is your call to think about budgeting. Think about budgeting, maybe take a budgeting class. And then finally, we have Aquarius risings. Aquarius risings, this is more of a litmus test on who you are and how you identify. So all the things I talked about with social identifications, that's especially important for Aquarius risings to go through right now, because now you're redefining yourself according to your own authentic needs, in contrast to what a family member wants, because you have Mars and Uranus down in the fourth, meaning there's a conflict here. A crossroads with a family member saying, I expect you to be a lawyer. Aquarius rising right now is probably going to say, you know what, you've limited me. You keep trying to limit who I can be, and now I'm going my own way, and I know Aquarius risings can do that. And then finally, Pisces risings, and I apologize for having to fast forward through you in my video the other day. I literally just ran out of space on the video editing tool. But Pisces risings are not in a good spot with Saturn right now. Saturn's in your 12th house, meaning you're just losing authority figures and structures and foundations. It's kind of like Cancer risings. You really can't rely on anyone right now. Teachers, mentors especially, are not coming through for you. And so you're learning to kind of do it on your own by sitting with yourself in a meditative state and sitting in solidarity with the cosmos, and realizing that you can build a spiritual anchor such that you don't need to trust in some random 3D authority figure, right? Like you're looking for something more timeless right now. And it's going to continue to be in your 12th house until next spring. So since 2020 into 2023, you're just learning to distrust and not trust people who you've looked up to. And so maybe once 2023 rolls around and Saturn enters Pisces, you at least can start over and focus like more tangibly on how you want to identify. But right now it's more reflective, introspective of like literally like the foundation, the center has not held anymore. It's completely imploded. And I need to kind of like think about like even like what I want to dream about and aspire to be, and through the prism of which mentor am I aspiring. So it's a little complicated. Like I think like this is pretty abstract transit, but like generally it's kind of like you're throwing all these structures into the ocean. There's dissolving and disintegrating, and you're kind of maybe just learning to trust that massive oceanic presence, which could be spirituality or creativity or something divine. So Pisces risings are getting in touch with, again, something timeless that might even span lifetimes. So I like that in a way. It's a little bit bittersweet. But anyways, to get back to the full moon themes, Saturn squaring Mars, and this means actions have consequences. We feel like we're hitting a wall, like a traffic jam kind of feeling. Each decision, therefore, must be weighed carefully, which isn't surprising considering what I've been talking about. And this is very much a counter to the acceleration of the Mars-Uranus North Node conjunction, which actually caused the Earth to spin faster than usual. So one of the shortest days ever recorded was on, I think, at the end of July. So that's evidence already that transit happened. we jumped. I kept talking about this on TikTok. We jumped into a new timeline. We jumped into a new, we started to accelerate faster. That happened with the Earth itself. So that already is a really good validation for astrology, right? So that conjunction is met with a reality check right now with Saturn. So it's almost like, what do we need to release if we want to move more quickly? We're alleviating ourselves of certain burdens and ties to antiquated authority structures and figures. This is important to note, by the way, that it's still Leo season. We have Venus in Leo, Sun in Leo. This means that we are still connecting to some type of heart energy, what makes us passionate. And so even contextualize your responsibilities in that zone of like, what do I want to release in the name of my true passions? Just two more things. Mars and Uranus do spell sudden conflict, which has been underway since the end of July. And if you read the news, there have been some very sudden geopolitical clashes and conflicts. That's still underway on this full moon. And with Saturn and Aquarius, there is this energy, and this is my final point. This is this energy again of the public being restricted and restrictions on, things like movement and gatherings. That's been underway since Saturn's been in Aquarius in 2020. And I think this full moon is illuminating the ways in which we are still limited and feeling isolated socially. I talked about this many times. Just because it's summer, just because it's 2022, just because of time, the passage of time, that does not mean that people are walking around like it's 2019 or the 1999. Like, nobody's pretending like things are great. The world is upside down still. We hit the end of time when Saturn Pluto conjuncted in the end of 2020, in January 2020. That was the end of time. Many astrologers are talking about that right now and kind of doing retrospectives on that conjunction. A lot of people predicted that would be the end of time, so to speak, and it was. We don't understand what a week feels like anymore. We don't understand what a day feels like. It could be, we used to have a consistent metric of time measurement up pre-2020, and now we don't. And so we're still floating in the ether. We're still grappling for some type of anchor. And the full moon on Saturn conjunct Saturn is reminding us that we still feel isolated. We still feel oftentimes lonely. And I hate to tell you this, but it really doesn't look like we're hitting that corner and turning in a new direction until next spring when Saturn enters Pisces. But at that time, it will be very exciting and dynamic because Pluto will touch Aquarius briefly in March at that same period of time, and that will activate a new collective consciousness, a new sense of collectivism and social activism. So there's change coming, but you just have to hang tight, okay, and connect with your friends online. Continue to do that. We have not returned to normal. We're going to have to keep doing that. The upside to that is that there is a solidification of like technological tools that will continue to happen through next spring. But again, think about really where that full moon is happening in your chart, because it's not necessarily going to affect every part of your life. Although globally, again, it will affect the flows of information, the social gatherings, and it will affect, it's restricting our movement in some way. And it could even lead to like power shutdowns, by the way. So I want to thank you for watching this. I hope this was useful for you. I am here whenever you need. Send me an email. The link is, my email address is innerworldsastrology@gmail.com. It's also on my website. Again, I do full readings, mini readings, and I have courses. So hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.